welcome to the Purpose Over Profit podcast with Darren and Chris, where each week we discuss what it takes to live a life of purpose and profit and explore the lives of people trying to achieve just that.
Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profit podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Greg Friel. But first of all, Darren, my co-host, how are you doing?
I'm really well, Chris. Yeah, feels like we're back into some sort of spring at the moment, which is nice.
Just for a word of warning, I've got a monsoon happening outside as well at this point in time, which is quite interesting. But on to Greg. So Greg, thank you for joining us. I'll introduce you to say, I was researching how to introduce you and I looked at your LinkedIn. I've met you before, and I guess what I could say is I've seen that you're a marketer, you're a musician, a creative problem solver, a team builder, a composer, a podcaster, a podcast teacher, and you've got 20 years experience in the music world as well and the freelance world. Is that a kind of fair way to introduce you?
Yeah, basically I do a lot of things and none of them well.
Not at all. And obviously I've seen that, and I wanted to quickly tell a story about the first time I met Greg. So Greg and I first met, actually, it was I don't know if you remember this, but I was at a networking event in Glasgow, just up the top of Glasgow, actually, top end.
I remember, yeah.
And it was a Federation of Small Businesses. Yep. It was in a lovely little restaurant. I can't remember the name of the name we put in the show notes. Evo, that is it. It stands for, is it Virgin Olive?
Extra Virgin Olive Oil.
That's it. Fantastic. Lovely little restaurant, actually. And everyone's there doing the kind of awkward kind of conversation at the time, handshakes and all this. Everyone's kind of dressed smart and the suits and all that kind of stuff. I'm dressed in my t-shirt and jeans like I always do. And I see this chap walking across the road, along the road, and he's got this black leather jacket on, jeans from memory. He's got the sunglasses on. He's got a lovely big scarf and the kind of lovely blonde floppy hair. I don't know where that chap's going, and he walks into the scene networking event and everyone just stops and talks to him. And I think is it Hasashi? He was
Sashi,
there. Yeah, he spoke to Hasashi first and he walked in and straight away we started talking and instantly connected. I think just because you look like a rock star and you act like a rock star and you've got this kind of attitude.
That's very kind of you. In other words, Greg, you're spectacularly full of shit.
No, not at all. And I guess that's the best way to introduce you. You've stuck in my memory since then, and I think that's quite a...
I'll take that as a positive thing, Chris.
Definitely. We need to add another /rock star to that introduction.
And obviously,
now, so
goes without saying.
Well, fantastic, Greg. So I guess we're going to dive in, but for our listeners that don't know you, which is, I'm sure, very few, would you like to give us a bit of your background and bring us up to speed around your career to date and how you've been probably in the freelance industry for much longer than anyone else?
You're really old, Greg. This is my 28th year being self-employed. No Botox. And I started off life as a singer, singing in the clubs. That's how I met my wife. We both had the same agent. We did that for years. And then I was always a singer-songwriter. So I was writing songs during the week, and I started producing for other people as well, writing and producing. So I did that for like 10 years solidly. And just, I mean, it was always just music. And you know, over that time, you develop a whole different set of skills because you're skint, because you're a musician, and you have to do everything yourself, and there aren't budgets there. And if you're working with other musicians are skint, so they don't want to have massive budgets for videos and social media campaigns and all that kind of stuff. So you learn how to adapt and do things to a budget, and it forces you to be incredibly creative with the zero budget. So that's kind of always been in my brain. It's kind of like, how can we do this on the cheap, but have it not look cheap? So did that solidly for about 10 years, writing and producing. And that took me to LA, you know, working with Ellen DeGeneres, a talk show host, and done projects in Nashville and New York, Amsterdam, Germany. I've had records out in the Far East and stuff like that. And it sounds super glamorous and exciting, and it is. But there's, you know, the other side of that is that it's just incredibly difficult. And about 5 years ago, I was kind of like, you know what, I really need to kind of take a step back from this because I'm just going to lose it. It just a series of bad experiences. And I still do all of those things music wise. I just kind of do it differently. But I'm focusing more these days on what I can do with more traditional businesses. and I started networking. That's how we met, obviously, in the more traditional business world. And for me, like, I spent the first 18 months meeting people who were really, really nice. And I basically was in shock for like 18 months. I was kind of like, all right, you're not a complete asshole. And that really, really surprised me. And I was just constantly surprised by meeting nice people, and I still am, really. Yeah, so it's been a really, really lovely experience. And for me, I wouldn't be doing what it is I do now, and able to kind of get through the whole lockdown situation and thrive through the lockdown situation, without all of the networking that I've done, and literally transitioning from one industry to another. But yeah, I mean, it's been very varied, very different. It's been full of highs and lows, as it is for everybody if you're a freelancer. But I'm not ever going to complain about it, because it's a choice. It's what I want to do. And if anybody does hear me complain, then they have, they're allowed to punch me in the face, because it's just, I could go and get an ordinary job if I want. I could be an accountant, a really bad accountant because I can't count, but I could do a day job, and no, I would lose my mind.
I love that. I love you talking about that, in the sense of it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It might sound like really, really glamorous, like you've said, taking you to Amsterdam, taking you to LA, but even in the tough times, you recognize like the juice is worth the squeeze. You recognize that it's worth it for you, and it's an absolute choice. And I think it's such an important message to get across to people. You always have a choice.
Yeah, I think and every day you have a choice, and I've been talking with a lot of young people lately, because I'm getting really old and everybody's a young person to me. But especially students who are just kind of starting to have to make those decisions about university, college, or further education, or what they're going to do for their, what am I going to do with my life? And I'm like, hold on a minute, dial it back in terms of what you're going to do with your life. You could do that for the next 6 months and then change your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to do something completely different. If that isn't what sparks your passion in 2 years' time, then do something else. Nothing that says you have to be, a physiotherapist for, I don't know why I said physiotherapist, but for like 30 years, or whatever it is you choose to do, a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Life is there for you to do what you want to do and what you're passionate about. And you're only here once. And I certainly don't want to work in an office. And other people are like, I love working in an office. It's great. I'm surrounded by people, and I get to do this. I'm like, brilliant, fantastic. And if that's what works for you, then great. But I think the thing is not losing sight of just what you said there, Darren, is that, you have a choice, and you're never trapped in a situation where like, no, this is my life and this is what it has to be. No, it's not. Do something else. If that doesn't thrill you every day when you get up in the morning, then don't do it. I had a friend of mine, he's very successful in business, and he literally went straight out of university into making shed loads of money, and has a very, very nice lifestyle, works as a consultant, and all this kind of thing. And a couple of years ago, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, I met up with him. I hadn't seen him in a few years, and I asked him, "Are you happy? Do you enjoy, your work?" And he said, "That's all right. You couldn't pay me enough money for it's all right. I don't give a damn what you're paying me. I literally need to wake up in the morning and go, brilliant, I get to do this today." And I find it really, really hard if I'm even working short term on a project that doesn't thrill me or excite me, or the client's a pain in the arse, which, these things all happen, because you got to make a living. But I would rather be excited to get up in the morning and go, this is brilliant, I get to do this today.
Yeah. That's amazing, just hearing about you talking around the passion, finding your groove and finding what you like to do. Because even talking about the kind of works and all, I remember you shared a video recently on LinkedIn. It was you in America doing a music video, and it was, I don't know how many years ago was it?
That was 2005.
2005, and even the commentary you put below the video was saying it was absolutely roasting that day. You were sweating, your hair was all frizzy, and you gave the real life side of it. But you never hear that from artists or people who put out music. They all just talk about how fantastic it is, but nobody goes to the gritty side of it. And even hearing about your friend and living that kind of non-purposeful life and just doing the day-to-day, when actually if you enjoy what you do, you can spend hours and hours and you forget to eat, sleep, whatever.
Don't get me
else.
wrong. I mean, the guy has multiple houses and, you know, holidays 5 times a year normally, you know, and like,
wow.
And he's got great house, you know, I don't know, I'm just exaggerating, but it's not exactly a difficult life, but, you know, in terms of being driven by different things, you know, I couldn't live his life. You know, I just think that's the key thing.
It feels like there's something in that I certainly resonate with, feeling this kind of handcuffs almost to a corporate career. I'm only 3 months out of leaving my corporate job. Me and Chris were chatting about this recently, that how like amazed I am that I was doing that kind of work before. Amazed that I was giving up. So I'm a transformational coach and property investor.
All right, okay.
But I did have an 18-year career across Tesco and largely SSE in the utility space. And
don't ask him what his job title was. We'll fall asleep.
Yeah, large. Let's just say numbers. But I think a large part of that, I kind of felt I probably was given that. That's okay. Mm-hmm. This is okay. But then now being 3 months out, not earning what I was earning before, but getting there, you couldn't pay me probably double to go back and work, probably triple. You couldn't pay me to go back and work. And I think there's an element of that kind of because I'm working on what I want to. I'm working on the passion. And I'm going, Christ, I can't believe that I used to spend my time, you know, on that call every week that I just couldn't give a shit about.
Yeah.
Running that spreadsheet numbers. So it's something I was interested to ask, because I think there's loads of people kind of feel maybe in a similar boat, but they've got these handcuffs and they maybe think this is what I can do. I'm not sure what my purpose was, what I was kind of born to do. And they might be listening to this thinking, oh, that's okay for you, Greg. You would always had a passion for music. And I just want to maybe take it right back to how did you find that passion, that drive, that energy? How did you know that this was for you? Because I think it'd be really useful to kind of understand those steps that kind of brought you there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two things. I mean, it's a blessing and it's a curse, because, you know, the good comes with the bad, you know. That, you know, certainly I've spent most of my 40s up until maybe 2019. It was a really, really difficult period for me. It was just a huge period of change, very, very testing in every single aspect of my life. You know, dealing with a lot of health issues in the family and all sorts of things like that. And the music industry was changing, so I wasn't able to make money in the same way that I used to make money. And you kind of like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Because that's really what, you know, I want to do. So having that, this is who I am and this is what I want to do. You know, like, yeah, but you still need to keep a roof over your head and still do hopefully meaningful work. But, you know, way back when, I mean, I started playing piano when I was about 12. Keyboards when I was 12 and then piano when I was 14. And I had, you know, a piano teacher who was like, okay, so how did you get on with the Mozart? And I'm kind of like, yeah, can I play this Billy Joel song instead? And I never would practice what I was meant to practice because it just didn't interest me. It's like you're putting notes on a page in front of me. I'm like, that's maths. Whereas I would listen to music and then I'd play it back. And it was totally like an instinctive thing for me. And I would just sit at the piano and play for 3 hours improvising just without stopping, because that's just what I want, you know, how I communicated. But it's one of those things that when it gets you, certainly music and all my musician friends sort of say the same thing. You just kind of like, you're screwed, because you're just like, I can't do anything else that really makes me feel like this. And, you know, certainly more recently, I hadn't done any of my own music in about 3 years, up until, you know, April last year. I'd still been writing and producing stuff for other people, but doing something for myself as an artist, I was just like, I can't be bothered. And that was huge for me not to be writing, because it's just a huge part of who I am. And then when I started doing that again in April, and I ended up doing this new album in like 2 weeks, felt the best I felt in 10, 15 years. And I'm like, oh, right, yeah, no, this is who I am. Everything else is bullshit. And I need to find a way to do this a hell of a lot more and balance my creative life in a better way. So the clients that I am working with, in other areas of marketing, do stuff that is exciting and creative, less client services and more creative problem solving and strategy and consultancy and that side of things. My dad said to me last year, he goes, Greg, you don't really want clients, you just want an audience. And he's very right. So anything that involves me like giving a seminar or doing a workshop or where I control the narrative because I'm the star, then it's happier for me. It's I'm not like having to go back and forth with a client doing changes for a video and that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong. I still do that stuff and I do enjoy doing all that. But I really, really love the general creative, output of just looking at a company or a brand in a general sense and going, okay, where's it we're going to go here and how's it we're going to do that.
That sounds like you've got an opportunity there to kind of leave your mark on these kind of corporations and businesses you're working on. And it's the same in music, I guess, because you get to put something out there, put your heart and soul on the line, and you get to see what people think of it and judge you as well. Because obviously, with your new album coming out, is that because of the situation with the world and the pandemic that hit and everything else, that give you time to reflect on what you wanted to do, or did you already plan to have an album?
No, I had no plans to do anything at all.
Okay.
I was literally looking at it, whatever. And then I wrote this one song and I played it to my wife and she's like, that's really, really good. And I'm like, is it just me or is that like one of the best things I've done? And she goes, yeah. And then I just went, and about 3 days later, I kind of started writing and didn't stop until I had like an entire album's worth. And it was about 2.5 weeks. And then I spent another couple of weeks mixing it and finishing it off. And it was just really just this like creative burst over 2 weeks. Hardly slept, but I was just totally in the zone and just, totally loving it.
Did that take you back, interesting enough, to that? Was it 12-year-old boy, did you say, playing the piano?
Yeah, 12 when I first kind of got, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think for me, it's like that point of creation, whenever you come up with something new and you're excited about it, that's everything to me. And, I'm going to be really arrogant here for a second, bugger it, why not? But it's like, whenever you've come up with something really good, this is going to sound terrible, right? But anyway, I remember I was working with this band years ago and they were like, do you wonder if John Lennon knew, that he was writing something really good? I'm like, yeah, he knew, because I know. When I come up with something really good, I know. You just feel it, you're excited by it, and I have mainstream taste, so it's like if I'm really into it, then I know that there's people who are going to like it, but which obviously attests to the fact that I've sold millions of records, but no, I haven't. But I think it's more than anything else, you just need to be proud of what it is that you're doing and trust your internal whatever your gut instinct that just lets you know that this is good. And I can be objective. I mean, I'm the first one to say, Greg, that's a piece of shit. That's not going anywhere. And it won't go out the door unless I'm really, really happy with it. So, in terms of quality control, I'm nobody's going to be tougher, than me. And my wife she's just like, well, that's shit. Or she'll just laugh. If she laughs, then you're just like, okay, I guess that's not happening. No, okay.
That feels pretty harsh, but I guess at least if you're getting that honest reaction, then it's not going out the door.
Absolutely.
So going back to that, if obviously when you started playing the piano, you're 12 years old, you're starting to riff with it. It was like, yeah, send away that Mozart and classical stuff. Give me Billy Joel, and let me experiment with stuff. If you're like someone that's 25, 30, 35, and they're sat in their corporate job and they're like your friend, but potentially not having the multiple houses and multiple holidays a year, and they're sitting there going, it's okay, it's all right, my job's okay, my life's okay. What would you say to them to try and change that? Or what could they do to try and change that, to find out, well, what else is out there that might be, create a better life for them, even with all the struggle.
I think for a start, I mean, I'll joke about being arrogant, but it's not for me to, it'd be incredibly arrogant for me to say what somebody else should be doing or whatever. There's plenty of people who are doing their okay job, as you put it, but you know, their life's amazing, and they've got a really great family life, and they're there for the kids whenever they need to see them, and it's not like crazy hour days and all of that, and that's what's important. So it's really about what's important to you. I don't have kids of my own. My wife has kids from her first marriage, so, and they're all grown up now. So I don't have those kind of responsibilities. I don't know if things would have been different for me if we had kids of our own, and it would have changed. I think from my point of view, then it would have been, well, your kids become your priority. For me, I'm my priority. But
it sounds like you're your priority plus your music as well.
Yeah, and I always thought that as I got older, then it would kind of diminish in some way, and it'd be kind of like, yeah, you know, that's going to be the more important thing. I'm like, no, it's not. So I think things work out for a reason, you know, and if I did have that kind of life, then I think things would have been different for me along the way. But yeah, I think in terms of finding, if you're in that kind of situation and you're frustrated and you're pissed off, then it comes down to, I mean, you've got to balance trying out different things with, you know, obviously you can have financial responsibilities if you've got you know, family and, you know, mortgage and all that sort of things. But it's, what is it that really excites you more than anything else? What are you really, really passionate about? What are the things that you really care about more than anything? And also then look at what do you hate? Was it that's really making you feel stifled and, you know, oh, this isn't me, this is, you know, and look at, okay, well, if I stop doing that, I'll give you a perfect example. For me just now, excuse me, about 2 years ago, I was like, I want to do less creating content for clients and more creative strategy and coaching and that sort of things. Because I was like, this is doing my head in. It was literally just enormously frustrating. And then as I started to kind of do more of that, I was like, oh, right, yeah, this is right. This feels right to me. And it going to the point I was saying about my dad saying I want an audience rather than clients. It's true. And that appeals to the performer side of me. So it's kind of like, how can I balance that world and this world and do it in a way that kind of merges the two? So like if I'm doing a seminar or that kind of thing, I'm still going to be a show off. I'm like, there's a camera, I'm on stage, you know? So it appeals to that side of my personality. And I think an awful lot of it comes with experience and just the fact that I'm really getting on, and you know what is good for you. You know, and I know what I like to do. I know what makes me feel good and what I hate doing. And I just want to do more of what makes me feel good. And there just comes a point where you're going, no, I'm just not prepared to do that.
And just listen to you there, Greg, actually, when I heard that, actually, what I took from that was actually around the point of testing and learning what you like to do and testing the water. I mean, you try it, and if you don't like it, then you can move on to something you like. And eventually you seem to have found your groove where you like to be on stage, you like to be the performer. I've seen some of the videos of the songs that you do, some of the choir stuff, which we can come on to as well. And you do like to be that centre stage performer because it's rock and roll star in you as well, I guess, as well.
Attention-seeking whore, yeah.
It's also the extremes, though. I can't remember. I was listening to Modern Wisdom podcast a few weeks ago, but chap talked about this in terms of like an efficiency process or how to be more fulfilled. But you look at the two extremes. So when you're talking about what's the stuff you really hate, that can sometimes be easier to identify, and then stop doing it or stop putting yourself in that place if you can. Obviously, balancing your existing commitments if you've got kids, etc. The stuff about like what's really important, yeah, there's a balance there between trying some stuff. Yeah, what could that look like? Where are you at your happiest and stuff? So yeah, I'm absolutely buy into that.
I'm going to be a bit philosophical for a second, but I mean, it's darkness is just the absence of light, you know, and it's just really, well, that's quite heavy, isn't it? What does it mean, Greg? Well, I don't really know.
That's deep, man. That's deep.
It sounds profound.
Yeah, but it's not. But I think it's really just the fact that, you know, you want more of that light in your life.
Yeah.
It's just, what is it that's going to light me up and kind of make me feel amazing? I mean, this was incredibly self-serving, right? But it's me. When I did this record last May and put out in June, I was, absolutely buzzing. And I ended up writing something like 40 or 50 songs from April through to December. And also with the other work that I was doing at the time, I was literally just buzzing. And even now I'm still very much kind of in that headspace. And it whenever you are in that zone, whenever you're close to that energy that really fulfills you and makes you feel amazing, you draw people to you. And I would just have these meetings with people on Zoom that go like, I'm totally pumped up just from talking to you. And you give off that energy because you're excited about what it is that you do. And when you're passionate about it, people can see it and people can feel it. It's in your eyes. It's in every gesture that you do. And I think you've got to think of what is it that's going to light me up and what is it that's going to make me feel that way. And if your life is kind of a bit dull, then it's the absence of that light. So that's me making sense of that bullshit phrase that I said. There we go.
That totally makes sense.
So on that point, I think it'd be good to hear one of the tracks. Is it okay if we play In a Heartbeat? Or would you prefer a different song? It's up to you.
No, I love that one. That's fine.
Fantastic. So we're going to play that and we'll let you hear that for a second. We'll come back and talk about it. Perfect. And now, Greg, what was the story behind In a Heartbeat, actually, now that we've heard it? Fantastic song, by the way.
Thank you very much.
It's very Elvis there.
Thank you very much. Well, what ended up happening was, and this is quite interesting from a, like, I suppose, like a marketing perspective, if we're kind of going to look at it that way. A lot of people have been really, really big on nostalgia since the whole start of the lockdown situation, and, you know, looking back to their childhood and things like that. So for me, I deliberately, intentionally did like a retro record. So it was like very retro 80s, sort of early 90s kind of feel, synth pop, more Kylie and Jason rather than Depeche Mode. And
wow.
Yeah, so I wanted to do that kind of song. And with that, this song, I had the chorus maybe about 5 years ago, and it sounded more kind of like the Killers at the time, but this is kind of turned into kind of very camp kind of disco pop. But yeah, so the chorus was there, and then when I started working on this album, I'm like, I'm gonna have a go at that and see if I can make that fit into this sort of mold of the, you know, retro electro pop thing, and it worked, you know, in that kind of thing. And I love the blend of having really, really jaunty, happy sounding music, but lyrics that are depressing as hell, or like there's a bit of misery. So so many of the songs in that album, it's kind of like, oh, that sounds really, really sweet, and it's kind of like, yeah, but everybody's dead, you know, or, you know, it's there's something really, really, there's something else there. So it adds that
good contrast,
that extra layer to it, you know, that happy, sad kind of narrative. So and I just find that kind of, for me, that always is the most interesting music to write. And I tend to find that I find it really hard to write just a generally happy song. If it's just jaunty, happy, you kind of like, it just comes across as being super cheesy. So I tend to balance it with depressing lyrics, you know, so it tends to kind of even out a bit, you know. But the response to that song was really, really incredibly positive, and it is one of those songs that people go, oh, it puts me in a good mood. I'm like, yeah, you listen to the words. But yeah, and I love doing the video. I got really, really lucky. I wanted to do a lot of like I say, the whole retro kind of thing, and it was synthwave influences and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the graphics and images in the video, I was like, oh, I love that, it looks amazing. And I literally trolled YouTube and went, this all looks amazing. All these different bits and pieces, and I took it, edited it together, and I'm like, right, who created all this stuff? Because there's no way I'm going to actually get permission to, I mean, that would be the ideal video that I want. And then it turned out that some of the shots were public domain. It was like, you could use them. And then there was this other guy who literally just sorry, his name escapes me, I should really mention him. But anyway,
we'll put in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. He had all of these incredible animations on his website, and he's like, if you're an artist and you want to do a music video or whatever, feel free to use them, just credit me. So every time I do a post about it, I always credit him and say, Visual Dawn, there you go, at Visual Dawn, DON.
And I love the colours, because you haven't seen the branding yet for this podcast, but we use pink and yellow.
Oh, there you go.
So there you go. So it complements this lovely retro style you've got as well, which is fantastic.
It's very retro. Chris's idea was behind that was inspired by Billy Connolly, wasn't
it? Partly a bit of journey he's on, and Billy Connolly likes to wear pink flamboyant shirts in his day.
Yes,
he stood out from the crowd, and nobody would expect it. The women would be attracted to him, but the men would think he was after them as well. So it's a fantastic story.
It kind of sounds a bit like me, but
well, Well, I guess because that's obviously in a heartbeat. The album's called Love and Lockdown, which is fantastic as well. And you mentioned around the story you like to produce as well. So I've seen another fantastic video you've done as well, which is We Can Get Through This. Do you want to tell?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell our listeners about that fantastic bit of work you're doing just now and the campaign you're on and the targets you've set? And I know you're halfway through. You're just over halfway past your target just now.
Yeah, that song. I'm going to be vaguely serious for a bit. I wrote that song in 2012. So it actually goes back quite a wee bit. And that was at the time when my stepdaughter's husband was diagnosed with cancer. And it was the same time as my mum was diagnosed with cancer. And about 3 months after that, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. So we had this like 6-month period of just what the hell's going on.
Wow, that's intense. Wow.
It was really, crazy. And my wife got through it, thankfully. She had surgery but didn't need any further treatment. My mum had the full, treatment, all that kind of stuff, chemo, radiotherapy, and thankfully she's, here with us now. My stepdaughter's husband wasn't so lucky. He had sarcoma, and it was, we kind of knew from as soon as we heard about it, it was like, this isn't going to be survivable, and he had 6 months. And it was just a really, really strange period that my wife had surgery and got the all clear 2 weeks later, and a week later he died. So you're kind of dealing with all these incredibly conflicting emotions. But so at the time of that, I wrote this song really for my family. It was just, therapy for me. Songwriting is always therapy for me. It's always just kind of working out what's in my head. And I recorded, and I tend to write and record at the same time. And I remember recording the vocal, about 2 o'clock in the morning, literally just as I'd written it. And I didn't play it to my stepdaughter actually for some time after that. Actually, it would have been too raw. But anyway, about a year after that whole experience, I started working with the Maggie Centre in Glasgow. I was invited by a lady called Linda Ann McConnell at the Symphony of Dreams Charitable Trust, and she asked if I'd be interested in doing a choir project there for 5 weeks, and then it would culminate in us doing a recording session and like have a CD to have in the centre and this kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, sounds good. I hadn't done anything really like that before. I'd been doing choir projects and that kind of thing, bands, and being in different kind of musical groups. But in terms of leading a choir, not really. So we did the 5 weeks, and after the 5 weeks, we kind of like, should we see about keeping this going? And we did for 6 years, up until March, with the whole lockdown situation. And then about maybe maybe 3 years ago, I was asked to do the same kind of thing at the Maggie Centre in Energy. That was the Maggie Centre in Glasgow, but I was asked to then do the same thing at Maggie Centre Lanarkshire. And then so that I sort of continued doing the same kind of thing there. And it's just been an unbelievable experience. For me personally, the thing that was amazing, and speaking about purpose for a second, if I'm to explain what my purpose is, I think really to inspire people to look at their lives or their organizations in a completely different way, using music and creativity. And the thing is with doing these kind of projects is that you're dealing with people who are going through the worst period of their lives. They're dealing with obviously life and death situations, and sometimes you're dealing with it's patients, and other times it's the carers. I mean, Maggie's whole ethos is we care for people who are affected by cancer, so that's not just cancer patients, it's families. And what was happening for me was, on a personal level, it was therapy for me, because I was, going through this whole situation with my family and kind of coming out the other end of it, sort of, but it was still massively affecting me. And I was, I'm the one that everybody leans on in my family to a certain extent. So you kind of feel like, so I was actually really using the center as well, to kind of get through that. And whenever you do these choir projects and you have a cancer patient come up to you at the end of a session and say, I'm going to be able to sleep tonight because of this. It's just incredibly powerful. And for someone who's done a pile of shite with people that don't deserve it, in the music industry, to work with people who are just, the level of gratitude is incredible. It's very overwhelming for me. You just feel like, wow, this is having such a positive effect on these people. And it's psychological, they're psychological, but it is a physical thing. It's the endorphins that are released, and oxytocin leads to bonding in the group, and we're all pals, in that group, and we've been able to kind of keep these things going. Over the whole lockdown period, I've been doing Zoom calls with the groups instead. And obviously singing over Zoom is not ideal. So sometimes we sing, sometimes we just have a chat, but more than anything else, there's that connection there. And especially at the moment, there's a lot of people who are vulnerable and not really able to go out much at all, if at all. So to be able to have that connection with them is incredibly powerful and really important, I think. But that song came out from that, and then I eventually put it out. I was actually asked by a company, an organization called Be the Ripple, and it was all about spreading kindness for World Kindness Day. And then, we're talking about, actually the lady in question, Joe Cervano, was a big fan of my song In a Heartbeat, and she was like, could you do something for this? I'm like, actually, I've got a song that we've been using, and it's kind of like our unofficial anthem in the choir.
That's just perfect. That synergy of having something ready that means so much to you.
Well, I meant I couldn't be arsed writing something else, but seriously though, it was perfect in terms of, this was actually written for this. We've been singing this for years in the group. It's like our anthem. And then, let's use that as to tell the story of what we've been doing, in the choir, and tell the story of the Maggie Center, and hopefully raise some cash there. So, I mean, I've kept the thing open. I mean, I was really going to stop it around December, but if people still want to donate to it, they can. It's there. But at the end of the day, we've raised 4 figures for them that they wouldn't had. Because I mean, like, all charities are really, really struggling just now because footfall's not there, and people aren't able to organize events in the real world and do all the usual fundraising things that that we should be able to do. But being able to put a song in terms of here's a video. Nobody buys records. Nobody's going to buy the record. But if you can create this pillar content that people go, oh right, okay, that's this story, I'll donate. Then
you're right as well, Greg, because it's so important to donate, because you're right around the events and the fundraising aspect, because again, it's not just the money that brings in, it's the therapy for those people as well, doing those events and the fundraising, because it gives them, you've seen people doing kilt walks and everything else, it gives them that energy and enthusiasm, and they feel they're living their best life because they'll be able to showcase what they've lost or anything else past that. But even going back to, I love the story around you walking in and somebody coming up to you saying, I'm going to be able to sleep tonight because whatever you've done. And I can imagine that's because the showman's come in and brought that energy, enthusiasm, and that happiness to something which is so dark at the time.
I think the thing is as well, and to be very, very honest about it as well, is that, like, I was going through a really, really difficult time. It was like for years, it was midlife crisis. I didn't end up buying a Porsche or anything like that, but there was times when I was like really, really struggling with being in the room in this situation when I've passed this, my family's gone through this, and we're out of this now. I don't really want to be still surrounded by all of this. But knowing that these people really needed this, and having to summon up that energy when I was dealing with all sorts of, other shit. Because my energy has to be there, and I have to be that guy, and that's really hard to fake. So if you're not feeling like that, then that can be really, really difficult. But I think for me, it came down to, I do. I actually just put out a new video, like a little, I suppose it's a motivational video, just the other day, and I called it "You You Woke Up Today." Excuse me, and it's really about the little wins that we have along the way, and kind of if we give ourselves credit for just every single little win along the way, then it builds up, and then we're actually getting through the day if things get a bit difficult. So for me, I had to focus on gratitude for the little things, and I was kind of like, Greg, there's this. And when I was just really like, ugh, I mean, really feeling the worst. And that really worked as a coping mechanism for me. Was huge. Literally just take it down to, I have a home, I have food on the table, I've got a loving family, good friends, but even like the most minutest level, just like, I'm grateful for having lunch today, and and focusing on
even the fact you've got a lovely hair as well, and lovely.
Yeah, still got my hair at 50. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, and we sang about that, and every day was a celebration of my hair. I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
But there's a couple of things that kind of, when hearing you talk about that, it's like, and I appreciate you being so honest and sharing that journey with us. But I think what kind of strikes me is having that purpose and passion when things are shit and things are not great, having a creative outlet, or having something that is almost like you describe it as therapy, escapism almost. It's just, you can take yourself into that. I think that's so powerful. Like I always talk about, like, bad winds kind of will blow on us all, at some point. We can't really control a lot of that stuff. COVID's hit everyone. Yeah. And I guess it's more about having something as yourself to go into something when, to help you escape from that and help you kind of move into that. And when you strip that back, you talk about gratitude. I certainly felt going into lockdown, you kind of catch myself going, there's this real element of being feeling entitled. And you're like, it is really not that bad. You see the things around, the world wars and what people had to go through. You were like, yeah, but if I just focus on what things are actually good in my life and what I can be thankful for, and just try and build from there, it's just such a more positive place to start, but that creates a bit of momentum.
The thing is, for me, and I think this is huge just in terms of like a self-development thing, is, and I say this to people all the time, and I actually said this to clients, particularly at the start of lockdown, and I think this is key. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't. And certainly for me, there was a lot of things that I couldn't do. From the music side of things, I wasn't able to be in a room with people doing choir projects. I wasn't able to go and do gigs, DJ, host events, all of these things that involve me being in a room with other people. But I made the mental switch that, okay, if I think that's all done and that's never coming back, then I can focus on this. And then I know that this is what I can do. And I'm not tormented by, oh, if only I could do that. If you're focusing on that, it's utterly pointless. And it's just going to drag you down. So for me, I mean, I say this to people all the time. There's absolutely zero point in getting stressed or worried about things that you can't control. If you can't control it or do anything about it, then you can't really worry about it. And obviously there's a certain level of insanity to that, because, it's, it's a scary time and we're dealing with an awful lot. But can you personally do something that's going to change anything? No. But what you can control is this, and how you react to this on a day-to-day level. I can do this small thing that's going to make this easier, and I'm able to cope with that. And I think with so much of the stress at the moment, and an awful lot of the mental health issues people are dealing with are obviously not having human contact and being out and about and just being normal humans, because we need to react with one another. But the fact that we're not able to plan ahead and focus, and that can lead to an awful lot of stress and worry when people kind of go, I want to know what I can do 2 months from now. I can do this. And from a business perspective, but a personal perspective as well, what can I do? And for me, it's kind of like, I'm literally thinking of this week. I'll kind of look at, right, I'll try and plan doing, Zoom meetings and stuff for a couple of weeks in advance, but that's about it. And I'm not really thinking much beyond that. Obviously, I've got a general idea of what I would like to be doing, but we can't really. So there's little point in stressing too much about it. And I think focusing on what you can control is huge.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's something that I'm really interested in. I've been exploring stuff with like binaural beats recently, and I'm really intrigued to get your take on some of the other benefits. So it's therapy for you. It's been music. It's your passion and purpose. You've been able to create it as a therapy for others. How else do you see the sort of health or even efficiency benefits with music? And do you what's your experience of that?
Broad and varied is basically the short answer. I mean, when I first started doing the networking side of things, it was really to do choir projects and team building projects and leadership programs where you're with people, and we're going to use music in a creative way to unlock people's hidden talents and skills. Because whenever you're doing music, you're using more parts of your brain than almost any other activity. And I think you tend to find that it unlocks certain things within people that, weren't necessarily obvious, maybe in their day-to-day sort of task-orientated job. We didn't know that Colin could think creatively in that kind of situation, so you put him in that kind of situation. So for me, music's amazing in terms of it's like the great unifier. It brings people together, but it also is a great, unlocker of creative potential. It's unlocker a word? I don't know, but it's the great.
Let's say it is. Let's say it is.
But it can, really just tap into those hidden creative talents and, set them free. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways that, I couldn't imagine not having music in my life on a daily basis. This will sound weird. I don't listen to music so much as I tend to make more music than I listen to. Because when I do listen to it, I tend to analyze it or overanalyze it. So,
or do you listen to more of your own stuff?
I listen to me all the time.
No, I don't mean that in a kind of self-involved way. I mean, just to try and...
No, I do. Seriously, I swear to God. I swear to God. The only thing I'm listening to in the car at the moment is my own album. I'm sorry. And if any other musician tells you different, they are lying. Because you've spent so much time, your heart and soul's in it. And if you're pleased with it and you're proud of it, as I am, I'm like, I really love this. I love listening to me. I have to say it's the first time really that I've really been able to say that. You kind of like, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done that. So for me, it's like a really big personal thing for me. I'm kind of like, this is like the best work I've ever done, and I'm super proud of it. So yeah, there's all sorts of things that unconscious and conscious that happen when I'm making music, and whenever I'm putting something together, I'm like, okay, if I do this chord, it's going to make somebody feel like this. If I'm in this key, it's going to elicit this kind of emotion. This tempo is going to do this. All of these things they happen unconsciously now. I'll just kind of do it, but that comes from years and years of technique and doing all that kind of stuff, and just what I kind of do instinctively as well. But stuff like binaural beats, and these repetitive patterns and all that kind of thing, I'm a great believer in music for meditation and that side of things. I'm seriously thinking of recording like alternative meditation music, but I just kind of take the piss kind of voiceovers because I don't think I could do it seriously. It's kind of like,
I would love to hear.
I would listen to it.
Yeah,
imagine
there you
you
go.
standing on the side of a mountain. There is a tree.
Is you going to scream at one point as well?
Just throwing a scream halfway through.
And just listen to you on a serious note around musical therapy. So, I mean, I was at one of the TEDx events in Glasgow a couple of years back. A fantastic lady that I'd seen on stage, and I went to see her at that event in Paisley Town Hall or so, doing another event, and she's fantastic. I can't remember the lady's name. I'll put it in the show notes when I find it. But she was all around rhythm and beats and helping people.
I think I know the person. Did she do the thing with the?
Yes, the
whackers.
Boom whackers, yes.
Yes.
And she talks about musical therapy with people who are
fantastic. Yeah.
She's amazing. People who are in comas, and you can match their breathing speed as well with what you're tapping and how they can react to that as well. And she was just like, it's basically you can unlock so much potential with music as well. That you were talking about the subconsciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing with this is that it's the neuroscience behind it. You take it back to literally, the cellular level. The first thing that happens in the human body, in terms of the senses, is you develop hearing. So you're actually hearing in the womb. So that's what you talk about. Newborns being able to they recognize their mother's heartbeat and all this kind of thing, and things like the pulse of a human heartbeat. When Darren was saying about the binaural beats and all this kind of stuff, so much of these kind of things are okay. Let's keep this at like 68 beats per minute. We want to have this regular slow pattern. It's kind of just nice and steady, and it's just that repetition that's going to keep that level of relaxation. Whereas it's like if you if you're going to the gym to work out, you're not going to listen to meditation music. You're going to listen to some mad techno-pesh probably, just to kind of get the blood pumping and going, or whatever. I mean, it might be in your face kind of rock music or whatever, but it's probably going to have a lot of energy to it.
Yeah.
And music matches your emotion. It's going to. I always say that music either reflects or projects how you want to feel. So either it reflects the way you're feeling right now, or you shove something on because you want to feel a different way, and that listening to that music is going to change the way you feel.
I would love to know, I don't know about you, Dan, I'd love to know from the people who are listening out there what they like to listen to when they're working out. I'd love to find out if somebody is listening to some kind of meditation tunes when they're really doing a hit session. That'd be fantastic.
One of my clients is actually a fitness company, and I do the music for them every month. So it's 153 beats per minute, full on techno for 20 minutes. Try working for 20 minutes solid to that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be getting a sweat on if you're listening to the meditation stuff. Maybe through yoga, Chris. But yeah,
no,
cool. That's fascinating. It's fascinating to get your insight on it, and just such a great story that you've got. But so many like key learning points through there for everyone, whether you're interested in music or not. To be honest, there's just so much to be able to take from that.
And it shows as well that you've got a passion as well, not just for music, but for helping others as well, which is fantastic. I mean, obviously the podcast is called Purpose Over Profit, and we talked around the profit and the purpose and whether or not they're equal, but I think you've shared so much fantastic insight into your life, and I love the fact that you've been so, what's a good analogy, or it's like the Wizard of Oz when they pull back the curtain and there's actually just somebody there talking behind as if it's like this scary big wizard. It's actually just this one person. And I think you've showed behind the curtain of what it's like to be a business owner, a musician, and actually even shown us the background into the aspect of the charity side as well. So you've shown us the rawness of it all, and I think that's tremendous, Greg.
Thank you very much. It's nice to talk about real things, and the reality of so much of this. I think I was talking to a musician yesterday, and he was saying it's funny whenever you say to somebody that you're a musician, they automatically think, oh, that's super glamorous and all this. And this guy was a drummer. He was like, yeah, they don't think that you're carrying a set of drums around central London. How are you going to do that and get to the gig? And 4 hours travel there, 4 hours travel back and do the gig. And it's all of the non-glamorous stuff that you don't see, or the dealing with toxic personalities and all that sort of things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you do what you do because you love doing it, and if that's really what your purpose is, then you'll do it no matter what, really.
I find that's a fantastic way to wrap up the episode. Well, thank you very much, Greg. That was a tremendous episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks for coming in. It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
And we'll put everything in the show notes. We'll put a link to your music, links to the album, and a link to the fantastic work you're doing with Maggie's as well.
Thank you.
As always, thank you so much for listening to the Pop Pod this week. If you'd like to leave a review or share the podcast with others, then that'd be awesome. You'll find us on Instagram at the Pop Pod, and on Facebook we have a community group called Purpose to Progress that anyone can join. And we'll be back every Monday with a new episode, but until then, stay on purpose and we'll see you next week.